There I am. Sorry, I forgot to turn myself on. Awesome. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Small Biz Matters, the half-hour program where you work on your business rather than in it. My name is Alexi Boyd, your trusted steed to lead you through all the matters that matter to small business, which is, of course, everything. And over the last couple of weeks, my regular listeners will know that we've been covering off a huge amount of really important topics, such as understanding debt and debt recovery. We've chatted about the GST, of course. We've chatted about the end of financial year and getting yourself organised. We've had a real smattering of fantastic guests on the show, and today I'm joined by another one of those fantastic guests from a local small business, because we on Small Biz Matters are going to be talking about small biz journeys over the next few weeks. We've got a selected number of businesses who have been in business ranging from just starting out all the way through to been in business for years and years. But what makes them unique is that they actually have a story to tell. And I think those of you who have worked in small business have all got fantastic journeys, and this is going to be one of them. So we have a very special guest today. We've got Diane Harris from Second Hand Studio. Welcome to the show, Diane.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming in. Now, we met a couple of weeks ago and we had a really good chinwag. Actually, we talked about your history and what brought you to Hornsby and what makes Hornsby unique for you, and a little bit about your business. But today we're going to talk about your journey, but also at the end of the show, which I think a lot of our listeners will be interested in as well, is we're going to talk about how to change the decor in your office and think about upselling. Not upselling, what's the word I'm thinking? Upcycling. Upcycling and learning how to use certain techniques and I guess design. I mean, I'm not a designer. I can't even say the word upcycling. I just don't have a design brain in my body. But you know, you look at Mad Men and you look at those sort of fantastic offices that you go to where people have really given it some thought.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are just creative but afraid to tap into it.
Yes.
Really.
Yeah, my mum keeps telling me that. You actually are creative and you can. I just maybe that's it. Yeah, it's a fear, isn't it?
Take the leap and just do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Have a go.
Yeah.
Have a go. So towards the end of the program today, we're going to talk about upcycling and how it can really reinvigorate your office just with even just a simple piece, a showpiece, for example. So let's go back. Let's go back in time. Talk to me about what it is that brought you to Hornsby and brought you to this particular career. Have you always been working with furniture and with restoring? Actually, to take it back, tell me about Second Hand Studio.
Okay. Second Hand Studio is a business that my daughter and I have started together.
Family business?
Yes, something I've wanted to do for a long time but couldn't do by myself, so really appreciative that I have my wonderfully creative daughter to help me out. Our motto is choose to reuse, so our mission is to get people loving and using pre-loved items, keep them in the cycle, and keep them out of landfill.
And they're very much in vogue at the moment, aren't they? I mean,
definitely.
It's the whole retro revival, and you know, I think of myself as a bit scary. It's just stuff from my childhood, really.
Well, a lot of people say that. So many people, I only had $1 for every time someone said that when they came in the store. This is like walking through Nana's house.
Yes, yeah.
But I think there's only two sides to furniture now. There's the old, sturdy, trusted furniture that's lasted time, and then there's the now new flat pack that is temporary and ends up in our landfill. So a lot of people are realising that there is value in the older items.
It will last past your own generation and even be something that you could potentially pass down.
Yes.
Because when you think about it, I mean, a lot of people will look at chipboard and go, oh, it's just wood, it's just going to landfill. But it's not. It's full of plastics. It's full of, all the components have got all this nasty chemicals and stuff through it. And we all forget that once it goes to landfill, that it gets broken down and all those chemicals and everything, additives come out, leach out, plastics get into the system, get into our waterways. And it's a really massive problem. So hats off to businesses such as yours who are trying to encourage people to upcycle and rescuing.
Yes.
I mean, tell me about what's been your favourite rescue mission.
Oh my gosh. Of recently, there was a house to be demolished in Gordon. I'm not quite sure of the age of the house, but the contents were all Art Deco.
Oh.
And they were deemed to be bulldozed along with the house. Thankfully, one of the family members couldn't live with that being done because they were valued pieces to the homeowner who had since passed. So we were able to go and rescue those pieces and then get them into homes where they're loved again. So to me, that's important.
It's crucial.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about the fact that a lot of times when homes are bulldozed, the contents are just left inside.
I think it's become a costly thing to actually take pieces to a tip. It costs you a lot of money to do that. A lot of opportunity shops don't have the room or facility to take furniture.
Yes.
So there's really no other option.
That's right. So that's one of the wonderful services that you provide. And I know that when we were talking about it, it was something that you were particularly passionate about, is that rescuing element. So once you've got the pieces, I know that you work a lot with TAFEs and you're trying to work more and more with schools to encourage them to learn the act of restoration and upcycling. So there is a bit of a difference, isn't there, between restoration and upcycling?
Yes. Upcycling is turning something into another item with a different use. And we get a lot of the high school kids coming through now. It is something that's being taught or encouraged. Through
design and technology, yeah. They've got some strong programs around here.
There are. Last week, for example, we had a young guy come in and he purchased an old Bakelite radio, which he was going to gut because it no longer worked, and fill with new computer pieces. So it would function like a new piece but look like an old piece.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And, of course, then the restoration is trying to maintain the good as it was when it was first created and keeping the true reflection of what it was.
Another piece I did that I used in the store that a lot of people really appreciated, I think I live outside the box. I think way outside the square, and some people can't have that vision. So for us to inspire people by doing things and having them in store for them to see so that they can copy, I turned an old wooden bed frame into a wardrobe, into a clothing stand.
Oh, you stood it upright?
Yeah, stood it upright, put a rod through it.
That's so lateral
covered
thinking.
it in recycled timber. So it was a freestanding piece that looked really cool and had a new use.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So think about that, everyone. Don't, those of you who are listening who have got, the potential of looking at old items around the home, don't just trash them. There are options out there, and think outside the box. There are quite a number of Facebook sites as well, I've noticed, where people are popping up and saying, if you've got any old unused furniture, let me know. And the goods that they produce are just absolutely divine. I really like those multicoloured, the standard chipboard or pine dresses.
Yeah.
And then they've painted all the drawers different colours.
There's some great local groups doing that. When we first opened Secondhand Studio, we did have a workshop in there with the intention of doing the painting and all of that ourselves, which we did for about 6 months, but then came to realise that there's so many local people doing this sort of thing themselves that we're now just providing them with the pieces that they can do themselves to the way that they want it done.
So talk to me about your community, the way you work in the community. As I mentioned before, you've got relationships with the local TAFE and you're building relationships with the local schools. So if there are any listeners out there who have got connections with the local schools, please encourage them to get in touch with Diane, because I know Secondhand Studio are very, very keen to get involved with schools and help out kids if it's not just something that they can upcycle. Then
even in a small way, we have just inside the front door of the store a free craft cupboard. It's just things like milk bottle caps and cardboard tubing, corks, anything that we come across. But we now have our customers bringing in pieces when they come to shop and leave in that cupboard. So we have a lot of preschool teachers, or kids this week seem to be doing dioramas for school. So mum's grabbing a shoebox on her way out so they can go home and do the project.
So that's an awesome opportunity for those of you with toddlers or kindergarten kids who are doing, I think if I remember correctly, in infants, in term 4, all the kids get together and make they do all that crazy sort of, sticking together boxes and cardboard boxes and ice cream containers and stuff. I can't remember what that's called. Junk craft. That's right, junk craft. So
I have to contribute, give benefit to Play School, really. Grew up on Play School, and the useful box was a big thing to me, and I like to think this is still what I'm doing, is having the useful box handy for everybody. Yeah,
so check that out, everybody. It's you're based in Hunter Street, aren't you?
Hunter Street,
yes. So just have a look around the shop and then grab some items out the front. Now, you're still collecting coffee pods?
Nescafe Dolce Gusto coffee pods. Has to be those ones, I'm afraid, because that's the only ones that we can send back to them. There is another one called Nespresso, but that has to be done through different businesses. That's just the way they work. So Nescafe, Dolce Gusto pods are the ones we collect. For every pod we get, we receive 2 cents. So it does add up.
Absolutely. And you're raising money for charity as a result of that.
For local charities, yes.
Fantastic.
So if there's any groups out there that are wanting, it's not massive amounts of money that we're raising through it, but we are getting money. So if we can help anybody out with that, we'd love to.
Or get in touch with us via the Small Biz Matters website if you'd like to find out more. And also we'll have the podcast available to you as well, and some information about Secondhand Studio, so you can all check it out. Now, one of the things that I was absolutely fascinated with when we were chatting was the family history behind small business, and your ancestry, you can almost say. So take me through that journey, because I think that's really fascinating.
I grew up with my father in retail, and before him it was my grandfather who'd jumped on a ship from England with his brother, came out here as a young man, ended up basically straight away in Gallipoli, but came back, started his family and started his own small business, which was a milk bar in Queanbeyan opposite the railway station. So my father grew up in that business and then went out on his own into a menswear business. So I've grown up watching Dad and in awe of that small country town customer service and community relationships that are involved there, and just wanted to be Dad when I grew up and to be able to provide that same service and be of that much importance in my community, to be able to do for others. I think we've lost track in our populated cities now of a community connection, and I think that's vital, particularly in our area here in Hornsby, because there's so many newcomers to the area. They need to be able to connect in somewhere.
Yep, that's right.
So if you can just wander into a shop and have a chat with somebody, as well as coming in for whatever trade it is that you're doing, but to have a personal connection with someone, I think is really important.
It is, and I think that is something that around here, that people who have grown up in Hornsby certainly and had businesses for many years, they do take pride in that. But we can't be complacent.
No.
Because it's something, it's like a friendship. A friendship just doesn't blossom without being nurtured and worked on and those relationships built. It's the same with small businesses with one another, next door neighbours. We were just talking about this morning how we walked into the studio and some twit had left the radio up really loud in here, and all the businesses around here were trying to get work done, and that's not very collegiate, but at least they have the opportunity to talk.
Yeah.
So I guess what we're saying today is build that community around your immediate neighbours when it comes to working as a small business. Don't close yourself off, but that openness, which we're so proud of in Hornsby, the ability to chat, the fact that the corner shop, their names.
Yes.
You know who they are. You know if they've got kids, they know your kids. My child has now gone up to the local cafe and is now buying coffee for me, and and they know who she is.
Yeah.
That is a real feel that we have here, and I know that a lot of people are very proud of that. But we've got to hang on to it. We've got to nurture it. And we're going to talk a bit about that after the break. We're going to have a bit of a rant. Everyone be warned. Lexi's getting on her soapbox. We're going to have a talk about what the local government agencies and local agencies can do to try and foster that a little bit more after the break. So we're just going to take a quick break for some community service announcements. We'll be back shortly. You're listening to Triple H on 100.1 FM. And welcome back to Small Biz Matters. You are listening to Triple H 100.1 FM. We have a very special guest in the studio today. We've got Diane Harris, who is from Secondhand Studio, a wonderful little shop that I had been meaning to stumble in for probably about 6 months because I'd heard so much about it. And it's located in Hunter Street, and its specialty is upcycling and rescuing, from what Diane was saying earlier in the show. And one of the things we were talking about before the break was how important small business is to the local community, how it becomes an integral part of the local community, and if we're not careful, we lose it, and therefore we lose much of what holds the community together and what binds them together. So where was it that you were based before Hornsby? Was it in Queanbeyan, or did you come from somewhere else?
I've worked in retail basically all my life, but always for somebody else. This is my first business on my own.
What made you take the plunge? Your dad, the inspiration?
Well, I knew I'd always end up doing it one day. It was just being in the right place at the right time and having my daughter available to do this with me. So she's now 4th generation Australian small business owner.
That's awesome.
So yeah, having that little bit of support. It's not a business that you can just be in all day. I need to be out on the road and finding these pieces and bringing them back into the store. So needed some backup, and Annie provides that support, and is fantastic at what she does with merchandising all the vintage and retro pieces, and maintaining our social media on Instagram and Facebook.
And does she have any formal training with regards to
She's
that?
also been in retail, hasn't had formal training in the merchandising. It's just, I like to think I've had a little bit of, my genes have gone into her. I take a little bit of credit, but no, she's just got a fantastic eye, and she's really good with people.
Well, you both are, and again, that's what we were talking about before the break, with the collegiate ability to just go into a shop and have a chat, and there's no pressure, and I think that's the same with a lot of places around Hornsby, that there's no need for anyone to go in and upsell or anything like that.
Yeah, there's no pressure like that. And often our customers' children are in the store before them. We have a little table set up with colouring in and some toys and things. So a few people have said to us, this is the one shop that our kids actually ask to come to. So the kids run into their little play section, and mum can wander and shop without having to worry about what the kids are touching.
Yeah, that's right. But having said that, though, it's I think it's quite eclectic. And you were saying years ago there was, because we lost, unfortunately, the antique store in
the
Waitara.
Curiosity shop in Waitara.
Yeah, that's a real shame, because that was there for decades and decades. And you were saying there used to be a warehouse over there as well that was filled with old furniture?
There was a local lady that did sell pre-loved items as well. She had a couple of premises in Waitara, but she's since moved on as well.
And because there's not very many. And one of the things we were talking about when we met was the fact that there's no real large-scale warehouse space.
Yes.
There's so many places that could potentially be used for this sort of business, or a community of businesses working together.
Yeah.
If we wanted to bring up a bit of an art.
It would be ideal. I mean, there are plenty of industrial spaces, but none of them are near the CBD or public transport, which makes it awfully difficult for a lot of people to shop. If we had a big warehouse space where we could have an artistic hub or a creative hub in Hornsby, we definitely have the people that would want to use it.
And that's what we were discussing. It's interesting because I have my sister-in-law's partner is a ceramicist, and we'd love them to move down here. And I started making inquiries as to, is there anywhere where artists congregate and they work together? Is there a studio space that is shared, a community or a hub, if you will? There's nothing like that. And they come from the Blue Mountains.
Yes.
So that is there in spades. So the chances of anybody... I don't think it's really just an area that's known for artisans, but it used to be.
This is something we faced when I first started brainstorming this business and just talking out loud to friends and people in general about wanting to start a business of this type in Hornsby. Everybody said to me, "You're crazy. Why do it in Hornsby? It won't last."
There's the Wallarobba Centre as an artistic kind of...
Yeah, but people in general didn't associate Hornsby with creativity or being current or on trend. They're completely wrong.
Well, you only have to look at those
out of
Facebook
the woodwork
groups.
And we're being supported so well. And from outside of the area, we actually have customers coming to us from those creative places in the inner city, from the Blue Mountains and from further afield, coming to us for product. So there is a demand in Hornsby, and if we had the space, it would be utilised.
So really, if we were doing that whole forward-thinking planning thing, which if we would expect someone like the council to do, and they had somewhere in their group of ideas that they would perhaps start fostering and nurturing a creative hub.
Yeah.
What are the steps in your experience to get that up and running? Right, really from ground-based level. If money was not an issue, what can the council do to get that ball rolling? Because there is a community here of artisans.
There is. Basically, they would just need the space, the physical building, which would need parking, which is another issue Hornsby faces. Parking and the building. And I personally would put the word out and could probably fill a building with many types of creative business straight away.
And an artist's hub or something,
Yes.
something where people can work collaboratively together.
There's a lot of musical people within Hornsby. There's the artists.
There's studio arts.
Yes, studio arts. There's a lot of people based in Brooklyn at the moment. And then there's those that are just scattered in random tiny spaces in corners of buildings in Hornsby and surrounding. But if they could all come together as a collaborative,
It would be awesome, wouldn't it?
It would be awesome.
Because when you think about it, there are some pretty major developments going on. We've got the quarry. We've got the quarry happening. Is there a potential that we could maybe turn a small section of that area and that land into an artist's hub? I know you're saying that it needs to be somewhere close to the station so that the public can get to, but even somewhere that just fosters creativity. Because I know the events team at Hornsby Council have made attempts at trying to start a bit of an artistic thing going.
Yeah, they have.
The
They're
markets.
doing a good job with what they're doing. But yeah, I think we can't rely on council just doing these things themselves, because there are more of us out here within the community that want to participate.
But it's a
in
space.
those- Yeah,
But it's a space
it's
that
the
needs to be
space that's
provided.
needed.
Yeah. And it's really sad, because I have said this a number of times, that the one thing that the council was doing for a short amount of time was the number 5 pop-up shop, which is not what we're talking about here, because it's not a warehouse. But it was something that was being contributed to small business, and that's now gone.
It's gone.
Well, and not only is it gone, but the business that was in there hasn't succeeded either. That's moved on. So now we've got back to having an empty shop.
Okay.
And it's sad. Because we do have lots of businesses, we have lots of people doing creative things and who are very interested in keeping that going and maybe making a bit of a business out of it, but there's no nurturing and no encouragement. And
I guess there needs to be someone from within council that's willing to come out into the small business space and talk to
people.
Local business owners.
That's right. You know what that could be? That could be brainwave, a business development officer, which lots of other councils have in the local area, who go out and talk to small business and find out what it is that they need, and do they need more networking, do they need more events, do they need more education, do they need more space, do they need hubs?
And I guess that comes down to our own Hornsby Council. If they do want to improve small business, then why isn't this in place? Why haven't they started
Where's
something?
the point of communication?
If there's no communication, there's no person doing this job. They're not supporting.
Well, it's
local
something that the
business.
Chamber of Commerce has been screaming out for a number of years. I've been screaming for it for a long time, because many of my listeners will know I came from a business in the inner west. They have a huge thriving business community because they have 3 full-time staff on council that are business development officers.
Yeah.
There's events. They work with the Chamber of Commerce instead of just, coming as a token guest. It's really disappointing up here, because we have, and people don't realise this, we have one business in Hornsby for every 8.6 residents.
Okay.
And that was back in 2012. And there are thousands being started every year. So that figure is much higher. So what is also sad is when you have the Shire report that comes out every year. It's a 60-page document, an annual report. If you find the word small business, it doesn't appear in the report as a word combination. It's insane. There's no consideration, and there should be, because of the proportion of businesses per capita as a baseline.
Yeah, it's saddening to me that we don't have support or backup from the local council. It all ties back into that community support, the community connection. If you lose small business and we're all just thinking about walking into a major store because we don't want to make human contact with somebody, how long really is it going to be before all the small businesses are gone? We don't have people on cash registers in major stores. And if you want something, you've either got to order it online from somewhere overseas, but never have contact with a person.
Yeah. And
you won't be getting advice from someone that's ever used a product or knows their product.
Yeah, it's definitely a dying art form. So those of you who are listening out there today, and if you're small businesses yourselves, encourage one another to use small business, encourage one another to just go and have a chat. You don't necessarily have to be bringing business in, but just getting to know your local small businesses so you can then refer them in, or it's top of mind? You're thinking of them when you meet the person who might be interested in sharing just that journey and that experience and that love for what it is that they do, because the department stores and the big shops don't have that.
Not anymore.
No. So back to our topic today. We've been talking about UpCycling. We've been talking about your journey as a business and how you and I are very passionate about small business and its importance in the community. Look, check out the next monthly Chronicle article. I believe there's a Chronicle paper. I believe there's going to be an article taking it to the council and saying to them, look, why is it that we operate so differently here than any other suburb?
Yeah.
And how much do you think things have changed in terms of just the way the community interacts with small business when you think back to your days with your dad?
Look, I remember witnessing it, and it stuck with me as a teenager, seeing Dad with his shop in a small country town when big business started to take over. And I saw the effect it had on the small businesses, and it rippled through the community. It was devastating to the small business owners, obviously, but I think we're now of a generation where people are considering their budget only at the point of purchase, and they're not considering where that product is made, whether it's creating employment within our community. There's a lot of different factors that if business is kept within a certain area, then you're only fostering and nurturing your own community. If we have to just consider that we can get A or B and one's going to cost us $10 less, but it's being bought in from overseas, so that's no longer being made in this country, or I don't know. It's a hard choice. I know a lot of us have to consider budget, and I'm not saying that our things are expensive by any means, but we need to consider the after effects of a purchase as well.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to yell at my husband right now where he went to a store and bought an iron it's got the most amount of plastic around the iron I've ever seen in my life. So he's in big trouble with me. He knows that. I'm very tempted to take it back. I'm not a believer in plastic. Look, thanks so much for coming on the show today, Diane. It's been really, really interesting chatting to you. As my regular listeners will know, we're talking about small biz journeys for the next couple of weeks. We've got some interesting guests coming on, so do check in with us on Tuesdays at 9 a.m. We're going to take a short break, be back with Small Biz Matters. I'm going to tell you about some very fantastic networking and workshop opportunities that are coming up in the next few days. You're listening to Triple H 100.1 FM. And you're listening to Small Biz Matters here on Triple H 100.1 FM. The wonderful guest, Diane Harris from Second Hand Studio, has left the building. Do check out her wonderful local store. She's very involved in lots of aspects of the community and is very passionate about small business. And if you're thinking about upcycling and doing something a little bit unique with your office, then definitely to talk to Diane. She's the expert in her field, of course, as we all are here in Hornsby. And the importance of keeping it local, keeping it vocal is so very important. So that's it for me this week. Looking forward to bringing you more small biz journeys over the coming weeks. And if you do have an area of expertise that we haven't covered yet on the show, please feel free to get in touch. We always love having guests on our show and talking to you about what their fields are and how they can help other small businesses. Thanks for listening. You are on Triple H 100.1 FM. I'll speak to you all next Tuesday here on Small Biz Matters, the half-hour program where you work on your business rather than